want to talk about sighting systems on different firearms. And this is my Remington 700, and I'm planning on taking this on a hunt in October, and I'll be driving up to Colorado. And one of the things I did is this model comes with an open sight that you can take screws out and take off of it. So one option is that I mount my scope all the way down, take the sights off, and just use the scope. The option I chose to run, though, is to buy these Rifleman scope rings by Leupold, and that way I can actually use the open sights and the scope at the same time. It raises the scope up about 3/4 of an inch higher than normal, but it gives me a choice of using the scope or the open sights at any point in time. Now, a lot of hunters and people says, well, that's useless, you're just going to use a scope, why do you need the secondary sighting system? And I'm going to give you a few scenarios, and it really, for me, it comes down to peace of mind in case of something unexpected happens. So let's say I'm out hunting, and when I get excited and bring the gun up, I exhale and blow fog right over the sighting apparatus. Look through it. I only got a second for a shot. I can't see because of the fog. So I drop down and I use the open sight. Another one is when you go hunting in the woods, you typically keep this, if it's a 3x9 down at 3 power. If you've been spotting with it though and had the power cranked up to 9, suddenly you forget to turn it back down and something pops out right in front of you. You go and you're like, oh, I can't find it, it's too close. You can drop down and use the open sight to shoot your target. So there's another scenario where in a fast situation the open sight might come in handy. Another one is if you've cranked it up to 9 power, have your animal sighted in, and you fire and the recoil rebounds on you. At 9 power, it's usually really hard to find your animal at close range again in your scope. It takes a lot of practice to get fast acquisition at 9 power. But if you're at 100 yards or less, finding with an open sight is a lot easier because as you look down through the open sight, you can see it out to the side and then you can get right on it. So again, this for me is just peace of mind. I know that I have a secondary sighting system. Another scenario I can envision happening is, since I'm going to the Rocky Mountains, is what if I fall? What if I slip and trip and land on my gun or drop my gun, God forbid. I'm going to try not to do that. But there is always the possibility while you're hiking in the mountains of slipping and falling. If I slip and fall and land on the scope and I pick it back up, I can immediately take the rifle, aim it at a far off point, say at 100 yards, and then look right up through the scope, back and forth. And if my open sight is dead on at 100 yards and the scope is still dead on at 100 yards, then I know that nothing shifted on the scope, that nothing's damaged internally, and that the rings aren't out of whack or anything. So it gives me that capability too, to confirm that my zero is still zeroed by having two things. If I look through it and it wasn't zeroed, and I knew I fell on it, then I could go to the range or go to some place and re-sight it in, or get another scope or grab a spare rifle if I'm not sure of my weapon. But at least it gives me that, you can pretty much count on as long as the solid pieces are still hooked on solid, that the fixed sight is going to stay in place if you drop it or don't. But these scopes can get out of whack if you damage the internals or drop it hard enough. I mean, a good scope is not supposed to, but again, things like that have happened. I've blown, on this particular rifle, I've shot one of my scopes out to where when firing it, it actually knocked the rectal out of the center of it, and I had to send it back to be replaced by the manufacturer. Again, this is a heavy kicking rifle, so that's why that's happened. So again, last story, there was a gentleman in Africa who was shooting one of these, or a similar model to one of these, that was a high-powered rifle with a lot of recoil, and he fired it, and on the second shot, looked through it, and the crosshairs were gone. He had knocked the crosshairs off in an encounter with a wildebeest. So he said he pretty much just aimed dead center of the scope and fired again and hit the wildebeest because it was only 50 yards away. But again, that was a situation that was a life or death situation. He was really lucky that he was able to pop the wildebeest with a second round before it got to one of his clients. He was a guide on a dangerous hunt. So again, always good to have a secondary sighting system in certain situations. You know, if I'm sitting in a deer stand out here in Texas, I don't really care about a secondary sighting situation. You know, the deer's going to come out, I'm going to aim at it, I'm going to shoot it. It's a static position. But if I'm out in the field and I'm moving around and hunting on foot, then I want a secondary sighting situation for me, or a secondary sighting method, just for peace of mind and just because I like that. Now, it's not necessary, but I think for the 3/4 inch rise of the scope, to have the secondary is worth it for me. Other people may disagree, but again, if you're brush hunting hogs or going on a hunt where you may jump an animal at close range, having the open sight is a good thing to have and is suggested. You know, a lot of people don't go pig hunting with just scopes, or if they do, they have low-powered scopes for fast target acquisition. So this gives you kind of the best of both worlds in a sense. And in combat situations, it's always good to have a secondary sighting system. In a combat situation, you need pop-up sights on your AK or AR, even if you like the scope like I do, because it helps with, you know, see further because I don't have perfect eyesight. In combat situations, it's almost a necessity to have open sights and some type of scope or red dot. But you always want to have a backup in case the power goes out on the red dot, your red dot gets hit or damaged by enemy fire, or something, you know, detonates near you. You always need those backup steel sights if your primary optic goes down. In a hunting situation, it's not as necessary as a combat situation, but some hunting situations like hog hunting and hunting large game at close range, it's a great advantage. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm going to have more stuff that I'm working on and doing, getting ready for my big hunt next October. Thanks. Have a good one.
Meep, meep.